Hey guys.
Welcome everybody. Good evening. Good Wednesday evening.
Hi. We have with us, I'm Roman. Welcome to RioPolitics Live. We don't do the news, we just help you see it. And we have with us an awesome individual, one of our 13 Court of Appeals justices, Justice Jaime Tijerina, with us. How are you doing, Justice Jaime Tijerina?
I'm good. How you doing, Roman, Manny, Brandon, Myra?
Good evening, sir.
Today we also have with us the former Clay County Republican Chairman, Brandon Barrera. How are you doing, Brandon?
Doing well. Thanks for having me on.
Awesome. Brandon, welcome. And we also have Myra Gutierrez with Latinos for Trump. How are you doing, Myra?
I'm doing great. Happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So what we'll be doing today, guys, and we would appreciate you all that are joining us in sharing the live feed with your friends and families on either YouTube. If you're subscribed to us, share it on YouTube. Or if you're definitely watching us on Facebook Live, please like and share our page. Share this video so that we get the message of Justice Jaime Tijerina. It's not every day you get a 13th Court of Appeals justice on a podcast to be able to talk about his life and why he is running for this particular office. And you'll be able to ask him questions. Now, a fair warning, as a justice, as any judge in the state of Texas, because they're running for public office, there is a canon that does preclude them from answering certain questions, like hot topic questions. So if you want to ask the question of, let's say, are you for ending Roe v. Wade? He's not really going to be able to answer that particular question because of the canon. So try not to ask those kinds of questions. But if you can ask the question just right, I'm pretty sure our experienced Justice Jaime Tijerina will be able to answer the question. So the first question is, Justice, please tell us about yourself a little bit.
Yeah, well, first, thank you all again for having me. As you know, currently I am your Justice of the 13th Court of Appeals. I'll go backwards. Previously, I served as a district judge in the 464th, the 93rd, and the 92nd. Before that, I was a elected county attorney in Kennedy County. I became an attorney in 1995, and for most of that period of time, when I wasn't a judge, I was also practicing law. So I've been practicing law for about 25 years. I think I got the bug for practicing law from my father, who was a lawyer from Rio Grande City, who got his education in San Antonio. Had 6 children in San Antonio. We all moved back in the mid-'60s to McAllen. And McAllen, South Texas, where I grew up, and also where my wife Diane grew up as well. So we're lifelong Texans, and we're proud of that fact. I've been born and raised in Texas. Family has deep roots in Texas. We've been here since Texas became a state, and just really proud to be a Texan.
Awesome. Justice, you, prior to becoming a justice and a judge, you were a county attorney in Kennedy County. You were also a graduate of UT Pan American, if I'm not mistaken. You were went to Thurgood Marshall School of Law, but you also served in the military, if I'm right on that. In what way and capacity did you serve in our military?
Yeah, so as a way to, I took a long path through college, and there was a period where I needed to make some money to help pay for college. So I joined the Army Reserves, and probably the best thing I ever did. It really helped me focus in life. And from there, got my education at UT Pan Am, and also got I actually enlisted first, and it was a private. I went on to join the ROTC program at Pan Am when I was there, and when I graduated, I also got a commission in the Army. I was an engineer officer for many years, and then when I graduated from law school, well, it's kind of a long story, but I went on a mission with my local reserve unit to Fort Polk, Louisiana, which is not a very nice place. Great people, but Fort Polk can get very hot in the summertime. And we were there for 3 weeks, and it was a brutal 3-week training mission. And when I got back, I filled out my application to join the JAG Corps. And thankfully, I was accepted into the JAG Corps. And I thought life was going to be a lot easier in the JAG Corps. There were some perks, but we worked our tails off after 9/11.
Oh, so what was probably, I asked this question of Judge Fonseca last night, who replaced you on the 464th and last year. What would be the oddest or weirdest or craziest case, not that you've judged, but that you tried, or whether you were the defendant or the defense attorney that you can think of?
Yeah, well, I heard you ask that question of Judge Fonseca. You know, over a 25-year career, you see a lot of strange things. You also see a lot of very bad things, and so the very, very bad ones really aren't things you like to recall because there's a lot of them. But I started thinking about that, and I've done a lot of interesting cases. But one that came to mind because it involved my time at the 92nd was a group of people that got caught with a cockfighting ring, and they were about 20 of them, from the people that were gambling to the people who were the organizers. And I thought it was really funny because I was handling the case, and there was about 20 defendants, and they all pled not guilty. They all said they weren't gambling, but it was being held in this warehouse. So I lost that election, and then my predecessor took over. So that was one of the cases I wasn't sad to see go, because it was very complicated too, because there were so many people. And then when my successor took over the case, he had to recuse himself because he had seen the cockfighting.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And to his credit, I don't think he was participating, but he had a warehouse next to the warehouse where they were engaged in the cockfighting, and he was putting together signs, and it was kind of like a little headquarters, and so they had been witnesses to everything that was going on next door. So he had to recuse himself from that case. So I thought that was very funny.
Yeah, that's funny. Myra, I'm sure you have further questions, so I'll leave you to ask a question.
Nice to see you, Justice Tijerina. It's always nice to run into you. One of my questions is, who has been your influencers? Who do you look up to when you're sitting at the bench or during your time as a judge? Who have been your longtime, I guess, moral people that you've looked up to?
Yeah, well, so I'll tell you a couple. And I know the easy one to say is my father. My father practiced law from 1957 until he died in 1995. And he did many things like I did. And one of the remarkable things that I talk about my father, and I think really what made me the patriot that I am today, is that he graduated from high school in 1945. And his graduation gift was a trip to Japan, World War II. He came back, did several stints in the Army, the Merchant Marines, and then he got a degree from St. Mary's University in San Antonio in 1951. So from high school, he goes to World War II, comes back, uses his GI Bill to get an English degree from St. Mary's. He also went through ROTC, and his graduation present was a trip to Korea and the Korean War as a field artillery officer. So, back to back, getting out of school, he served his country overseas. And then he came back and used his GI Bill again to go to law school. Remained in the reserves as a JAG officer probably till the mid-'80s, and then he retired. But he also became a federal judge. He was a federal magistrate judge for many, many years. He was a municipal judge. He was a justice of the peace. So he had a commitment to service that I really didn't even realize until I became much older. And so I really look up to him and the sacrifices that he made to raise a family and be loyal to the law while he was a lawyer and a judge. The other one I talk about and it's really interesting, but Judge Ricardo Hinojosa, who's our local senior federal judge, I've known him for many years, and he also came from Rio Grande City, where my parents came from. So my father and him were good friends. But a couple of years back, he was given an award by the federal judiciary, and it's kind of like their Academy Awards. It's the highest honor that they can bestow to a federal judge who's on the bench, district judge. And this award is given in Washington, D.C., in the Supreme Court chambers. So a bunch of us from the Valley, we go up to watch him receive this award, and like a bunch of the Supreme Court justices are there, and it's a ceremony with a lot of pomp and circumstance, and it's something really to praise him for all the work that he did for his or during his career. And when he got an opportunity to speak, he took that moment to talk about his brother. And his brother Jose was killed in Vietnam in 1967. He took that time when it was supposed to be about him and talked about his hero, and that was his brother. And I'll never forget that selflessness of on his part to talk about him. And he does it all the time. When he gets an opportunity, he talks about him because he's so proud of the service that his brother had.
All right.
That is a great character trait.
Well, thank you. Before we go any further, thank you for your service and your father's service. It means a lot to our country and for you to continue to serve the country. Thank you.
It's my pleasure. You know, I wouldn't say they kicked me out, but I reached mandatory retirement January 1st, 2020. So I am now a retired lieutenant colonel in the Army. So,
Brandon, you got a question? Brandon, can you hear me?
So I guess the 13th court, how many counties are in the 13th Court of Appeals?
there's 20, and I knew someone was going to ask me that question. So, yeah, I can hear you. So there's 20, and I know them by heart, but I don't want to forget them. So I have a list. We started in the south in Hidalgo, and we moved to the east to Cameron, and up to Coastal Bend. We got Willacy, Kennedy, Clayburgh, Nueces, San Patricio, Refugio. We also have Aransas, Calhoun, Matagorda, Jackson, Wharton, Victoria, Live Oak, B, Goliad, DeWitt, Gonzales, and Lavaca. It's a big district.
Yeah, and right now you're the only Republican on 13th Court of Appeals. Am I correct on that?
That is not correct. Justice Greg Perks is on the court as well.
Okay.
He was appointed. Yeah, he was appointed because Justice Dori Contreras was elected as the chief judge. So she moved from her place to the first place, and then there was a vacancy. So he got appointed to fill that spot. But he made a decision that he was not going to run to keep that spot. And he's running for district court in Nueces County. Right.
So he stayed on, because I was completely confused by the new changes, because I know that he was decided I'm not going to run for the 13th, because he was a justice, and he ran already a couple of times and has lost a couple of times.
He actually, the first time he ran, he won, and it was really interesting because he won by less than 1%. It was a very, very, very close race. And then, of course, he went 6 years, and his next election ended up being a presidential cycle. And history has told us that, and it's different now because we don't have straight ticket, but when you look at the numbers, the presidential cycles were always more difficult to win in this district.
Yeah, and so, because I remember when he won, it was kind of shocking. I remember meeting with Ali Hinojosa. I think he was his campaign manager. Maybe. And so he was told me he's going to be able to win. I looked at the number. And I think you're right. You know, he should be able to win in an off year. Unfortunately, presidential years, and then he lost 2 years ago in 2018 when he ran again. When you ran also for the 13th Court of Appeals, and it was
the differential. Well, when he lost in the presidential cycle before 2018, which would have been 16.
Yes.
And he lost because the differential in that presidential cycle is just too great. The numbers of people that would come out in presidential cycles was just too big. Governor cycles, they always narrowed. But this last cycle, that all that money that came from out of state to push people to the polls, to hit straight ticket, just killed it, decimated every Republican judge in the state of Texas. I think there was one appellate judge in Texas that survived the 2018 sweep, and he was from Tarrant County, which is Fort Worth, which is a pretty strong Republican stronghold.
And the reason I bring this up, I'm sorry I didn't read yours earlier, Jennifer. I tried to read them, but I was like focusing on Justice Tijerina. Zach Cantu from KRV. Judge T and his family is great. They all went out to furnish me a birthday party when I was stuck managing the GOP office a few years ago. Oh, wow. So that, okay, you got free food, Zach? Somebody gave you free food? Amazing. Okay, the reason I bring this up is because, and I'm glad that Brandon asked the size of the district, is you unfortunately lost 2 years ago to a judge who was indicted in federal court, and I guess he pleaded guilty and is now serving in federal prison. I'm not originally from Cameron County, but this is why I live in Cameron County. We have a history of judges being arrested and going to jail. Most recently, Judge Ava Lemus, because of corruption in our judicial system. So, how important is it that we elect good judges with good backgrounds into the judicial system, and especially for those in the northern half who don't understand that the Valley is the center, the populated center of this particular district. And so we're beholden to these Democrats. So what would you have to say? Oh, we'll bring him in a second, Manny. Sorry, I was messaging Manny. Telling Manny. So how important is it to have good judges in our district?
Well, it's terribly important, and you're right about the disparity of population between Hidalgo County and the rest of the district. This is a Democratic stronghold in Hidalgo County, and they control almost half of the population of the district. But when you look at the numbers, there's low voter registration and there's low voter turnout. So some of that disparity is kind of equaled out by the number of people who actually go out and vote in the north. But you heard me list all those counties, and if we had an electoral college in this district, I'd win because I won 17 of the 20 counties the last time that I ran. And Brandon, we're going to need your help on this because one of the counties I lost was Clayburgh County.
It's your fault, Brandon.
Lays on your shoulders.
And Republicans can win Clayburgh County. So we lost Clayburgh County, which I was really surprised that we did. Mm-hmm. But the fact that the Valley controls the district should be a little scary for the people in the north, because the north have a little bit of different philosophy on trust and integrity in the judicial system. And so I think that we really need to get the vote out in the north in order to overcome the problems that we've had in the south. But now that we have no straight ticket voting, it's going to be interesting to see how many people go down ballot and actually vote for judges. One of the talking points I have when I go out on the road and speak with people is that you vote for, I think the number is like over your lifetime, you'll vote for like 20 times more judges than anything else. In any given election, you get 2 federal positions, maybe 4 to 7 statewide positions. You get the local, top local candidates, and then the rest are judges. In Harris County last cycle, you had those numbers, like I told you, just a couple at the top. a couple of statewides, and then you had 85 judicial races. Can you imagine trying to remember which judge I prefer over the other for 85 races? Now, luckily, we don't have that many in any of the counties that we're running in. Our ballots will not be as long as Harris or Bexar County or Travis County, but we need to make sure that people go down ballot. And I encourage people too to take the time to find out who their judges are, because people don't have faith in the judicial system, and for good reason. One bad apple spoils a lot, right? And well, we've had more than one bad apple. We've had a lot of bad apples, and people don't trust the local courthouses. And it's sad because there are some good people. There's some really good people at our local courthouses, but nobody writes the good stories. They only write the bad stories, and everyone just hears about the bad stuff going on. But if you have just one bad apple at the courthouse, it has a ripple effect, and we need to make sure that good judges with proven integrity, proven service to our community, people who will do it because they're committed to service and for no other reason, those are the kind of judges we need. And I'll let the public decide whether they think I'm one of those.
Yeah. Jennifer said, this is about politics. Judge Tijerina does not legislate from the bench. He is ethical, and it is vital we keep someone that upholds the rule of law. That is Justice Jaime Tijerina. Well said, Jennifer. And right now, we'd like to welcome in from the backstage onto the big boy table, I guess, Dr. Ray Gonzalez. He wanted to come in and say a couple of words and just stop in. Dr. Ray?
Yes, thank you so much for allowing me to come on. I only have a few minutes, but I wanted to make some time to come on, let everyone know how much I appreciate Judge Tijerina's willingness to run again. He has my unfettered support because the man is honest, he's humble, he's steady, he's cerebral. Now, you may see him joking around sometimes, but the man, when it comes down to being a judge, the man is cerebral. He's fair. As a jurist, he's guided by the facts and not by relationships with the attorneys that are before him. I wanted to share something that the judge himself may not know. A couple of years ago, I was in a deposition. Yes, I'm a doctor, but I don't practice medicine. I'm only a practicing attorney. And so in one of my cases a few years ago, I was in a deposition with an out-of-town attorney who's visiting the Valley. And in this deposition, he misbehaved so bad. And I called it to his attention on the deposition video several times. And at one point, he sat back in his chair, kind of went like this and said, let's let the judge figure it out. Let's let the judge decide, kind of mocking the entire process. So what I did was I filed motions for sanctions. This is the time. If there was a time to file a motion for sanctions, that was the time. And I had it all on video. So we got to the courthouse. I don't think anyone had ever filed sanctions against him. He was an elderly gentleman going up against what he thought was an inexperienced trial attorney. I got there. I had all the evidence I needed. Because he wasn't from Cameron County, he hired an attorney to represent him in that motion, just for that hearing. Someone who happened to know the judge. Before, at any other district court, I definitely would have won. We would have gotten sanctions. He got off scot-free. Now, everyone should know that judges are very reluctant to give sanctions, to impose sanctions on someone else, a fellow member of the bar. But when behavior is beyond the pale, it's absolutely appropriate. So this person from outside our county got away with it, even though his behavior was beyond the pale. That's Judge Tijerina's opponent. Now, I'm not saying that she was out of line. She has broad discretion, but the feeling in that courtroom was that if that man had not had a friend of the judge, someone known to the judge representing him, that sanctions would definitely have been issued. Judge Tijerina is a judge that is guided by the facts and not by his relationships with the people coming before him. Now, as an appeals judge, he doesn't actually have people before him, right? He's reading the record. But I trust him, and I wanted to come on board just to tell you, Judge, that I appreciate you, and I appreciate your service to our country as a veteran. You've got my support, and I am hoping everyone finishes their entire ballot to get down to where you are, because we need a man like you on the 13th Court of Appeals.
Well, thank you, Ray. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Dr. Ray. I know you have busy things to do. Thanks for stopping by. I'm not going to ask Judge unless Justice Tijerina wants to make a comment. I don't know. I don't think he really needs to at that, unless you want to.
No, I don't know. I don't know what happened in that case, but we'll take whatever Dr. Ray has to say about that, and we can think about that. But I will tell you, one of the things that he brought up is one of the problems that I've had as a lawyer and as a judge, and that is this need for local counsel. I've just never seen the need for it, and it makes you wonder why these out of county, out of state lawyers who are practicing feel the need to bring in someone local. Mm-hmm. If judges should be listening to lawyers the same way, whether they're from here or from somewhere else, without having to bring in someone local, it begs several questions about why judges need, and Dr. Ray will tell you, and I'll tell you too, sometimes local counsel, they just stand there. They don't say anything. They sit there to look pretty, to make sure the judge knows that they've hired someone locally. I've never been a fan of that. We do oral arguments, and when we do oral arguments, it's not uncommon for people who come from out of the area to bring in local people as well, for the sole reason of trying to influence the judges, whether it be in district court or the appellate level, and it's appalling, and it really irks me, and I've let people know that I don't look kindly on that, because I don't give anyone local any more deference than I would someone else. We just look at the facts and legal arguments that they make.
There's a reason why Madam Justice wears a blindfold. And so I appreciate you, Justice Tijerina. All the best. God bless you.
Thank you.
We'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Myra, you have a question for Justice Tijerina? I'm sure you do.
I want to ask him this, one of the same questions I asked Judge Ismael yesterday, Fonseca. Is there a case or a judgment that you had that made you lose sleep, on how you proceeded with it?
I don't know. I'd characterize it as lose sleep, but yeah, there's some difficult decisions that you've had to make, and I don't know that I could identify one. And I know Judge Fonseca talked about family cases, and those are usually the ones that really tear at your hearts. You really have to dig deep. One of the things, when I was on the bench, the district court bench, I used to keep a little card on the front with Army values on it. The loyalty, duty, respect, integrity, honor, and personal courage. It's an acronym for leadership. And then right next to it, there was a little prayer for patience. And so when you would get something very difficult and people who are very difficult to deal with, I'd have to dig down, look at those and say, I got to make sure that I treat these people with respect, and please give me the patience that I need in order to deal with them and make a correct decision. But yeah, I mean, there were times when I had difficulty because I knew I had to go in the next day, and I knew what I was going to do, and I knew it was going to hurt some people, kids included.
Brandon? Brandon?
Yes. So, I don't know if you remember, but I think it was in 2015 that legislative session, there was talks of splitting the 13th Court of Appeals into two different courts. I guess New Oasis would get the new one, and then the Valley would keep the 13th. Do you think that's something they should consider in the future, or what are your thoughts on that?
Well, here's one thing I know about the 13th Court of Appeals. We are the only Court of Appeals that has two seats. We have a seat in Edinburgh, and we have one in Corpus Christi. We have office space in both places for each justice. And I'll tell you too, they're big offices. They're nice, way more than we need. And we have them in two different locations. We also have staffing issues because we have legal assistants in Corpus that work for a judge in Edinburgh, and we have clerks in one that, technology makes things a lot easier now. But we are wasting resources, and nobody in my court likes for me to talk about this. We are wasting resources by having two separate offices. It's not hard from someone from the north. We only have oral arguments 4 times a year. So whether we choose Edinburgh or choose Corpus Christi, it makes no difference. We are building a brand new courthouse in Hidalgo County, new offices for everyone. I know the people in Corpus wouldn't like this, but I think that we ought to pick one and stick with it, and that way we save money for the taxpayers of the state of Texas and in the district. I know it's local. Usually it's local resources in Nueces County that are paying for the spots in Corpus Christi, and then here in Hidalgo County, and then all 20 counties collect a fee and kind of chip in at the end of the year. But I'm in favor of just having one seat. Now, splitting them, I don't think that will get any traction this cycle, because if you split, there'll be a fiscal note attached, which adds money to the budget. And my guess is that there's almost zero money that's going to be added to the budget in the next biennium. That being said, there's probably room for splitting it. But if we split it, the southern counties would be forever beholden to the Democratic judges from here to eternity, and until we turn the valley red.
Jennifer says Justice Tijerina will maintain his office productivity since his appointment. They have produced over 80 opinions, and despite COVID-19 forcing them to work remotely, they have not slowed down. And that was actually going to be my next question in regards to coronavirus. I asked sort of this question to Judge Fonseca, but it's a little bit different since you don't have very many oral arguments, just like you said, other than 4 times a year. Do you believe that the coronavirus pandemic has taught you all something about how functional the court can be, even with technology, or is there room for improvement? Or is this the way forward in that light?
Well, it's interesting because we've been 6 months working remotely, and the Office of Court Administration, they set performance measures for each court, and it's based on the number of filings and then the number of opinions that come out of the number of filings. So we're supposed to be anywhere from 95% to 105%. Apparently, you don't want to go over. You don't want to be too efficient, apparently, but you're supposed to hit those numbers at about 100%. So half of the year we're working in the office, and we're meeting or exceeding all of our performance measures. And then the pandemic hits. Everyone has to go home. The office, together with the chief and the court clerk, who was brand new, and all of the legal assistants and staff, worked very hard to get everyone equipment to be able to work from home. everyone within about 2 weeks had the ability to work from home, work remotely with technology. And in the last 6 months, our performance measures didn't drop, not one bit.
Wow.
And so that begs the question of whether or not we even have to have, I said we should have one, not two. Well, that begs the question, could we just work from home? Because we're hitting every single performance measure that we were before the pandemic. And what you probably don't know is that during the pandemic, and I forget which month it was exactly, the Office of Court Administration was hit with ransomware. Our whole system shut down completely for at least a week and a half. And then they were able to block the ransomware and rebuild every single workstation within the office of, every 14 Court of Appeals, Supreme Court, Court of Criminal Appeals. They built everything right back up, and right now we're back to normal. So we went through several months of having to do workarounds for gathering information in order to work on our appeals. That might have been more difficult than the pandemic itself because data was lost.
Right.
And it was hard to get some of the stuff that we needed in order to write our opinions. But that being said, I think it teaches us that we can work in or out of the office with equal efficiency. I like having the office because you can build relationship with your teams, and I think that if we were allowed to work a little harder and push out some stuff a little bit faster, we can get that done in a team environment within the office.
No, happy belated birthday, Judge T. Josh Peltier, our friend from the Cameron County Conservatives Facebook page. I believe, Josh, you're joining us in the next, I think on Thursdays when you're joining us, when we'll have Jane Lopez, who is a school board candidate out of San Benito. And I think I have an odd question. Are you ready for the rapid fire questions? Are you ready?
Me?
Rapid fire, and then we're going to go into some harder questions and really talk about your race. So if you're ready, what we're going to do is these are 2 minutes. You'll get. I'll go through them. Take your time if you want to, but don't overthink them. These are just random questions. Some are specific to you, some are not, and just you'll have 2 minutes. Okay. No right or wrong answers on this one. First question: Army or Navy?
Army.
Who has the better mascot, Army or Navy? Army or Navy?
Army.
There you go. Best Army football player in history. Do you have anyone that you can think of?
Oh, I wish I would have said Navy because then I would have said Roger Staubach.
All right. So you can't think of anybody in Army. Yeah, you know what? I can't think of one either. I honestly can't either. Favorite game to hunt? I'm assuming you're an avid hunter.
Oh, favorite game to hunt? Quail.
Quail. Why?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, quail hunting is so much fun.
Really?
I have a ranch, and I have really stopped hunting anything else. I do bring friends out on occasion to hunt nilgai or hogs. We have whitetail, but I pretty much leave those alone. But quail's just fun. It's challenging, and when I hunt quail, I use a 410 to make it even more challenging.
Oh wow! Favorite filling for tamale?
Pork.
Pork. Okay, good. That's a good choice.
Or cream cheese jalapeno.
All right. I mean, you could have gone with deer meat. I actually like deer tamales. My grandma made them really, really well when she could make tamales. Best city tacos in the valley. Yeah.
They made some really good brisket street tacos at a place called Ace's Barbecue.
Really?
Oh.
Yes.
That was the next question. What?
Is that the one in Mission?
It's the one in Mission. Yeah, they make brisket street tacos that are very good.
Okay. Well, I was going to ask you the best barbecue joint in all of the 13 Court of Appeals, but maybe that'll answer that question.
No. The 13th doesn't have a lot on the top 50 list of Texas monthly barbecue list. My wife and I, we go out of our way to find good barbecue.
Yeah.
In fact, I have the Texas Monthly Barbecue app on my phone, and when we're driving through the country, you can use it to locate barbecue, and it will tell you whether it's one of the top 50 barbecue joints in the state. Now that I think those numbers are shifting because there's a lot of good new pitmasters.
Yeah.
So the one I haven't tried that's on the list is Brownsville's Vetta's backyard barbecue.
I'm going to tell you right now, that is overrated. You might as well go to 1848. Smoky Oak and Mercedes is actually pretty good.
Smoky Oak's pretty good.
Yeah, I'm a few blocks away from Vetta's barbecue. But if you told that to Trey Mendez, he'll murder me. So I don't want to say that. He's my attorney. SCOTUS Justice Ginsburg and the late Justice Scalia were great friends. Who's your great friend who doesn't share your legal philosophy?
Oh. Well, I can't say.
Okay, then don't say it. We're good. And finally, I think we're all already. Well, I promised Myra I would ask this question.
I do have friends, though. I do have close friends that don't share my political philosophy, though.
Well, maybe on the court or something. Well,
but I don't want to say it because they probably don't want to be called. They don't want to be called out.
No worries.
My friend.
Okay. Star Trek or Star Wars?
Star Trek.
Oh wow. Okay, good. That's your answer, Myra. And finally, Zach Cantu sponsored question. Zach Cantu from KRV: cake or pie?
Say that again.
Cake or pie?
Oh, pie.
I don't know why anybody would say cake. Pie is the best. All right. Thank you very much.
I didn't agree with the Star Wars, Star Trek, but I agree with the pie.
There you go. All right. Well, those are the two questions. Sponsored 2-minute rapid fire questions, sponsored by the Second Amendment. All right. Our question, I think, is you have been on the 13th Court of Appeals, and you've also been a district judge. Your opponent right now is a district judge. I would assume
She's retired.
Retired. Oh, yeah, well, retired. Yeah. Who replaced her? I can't even remember who replaced her.
Cordoba.
Okay. So
I don't know his first name, but his last name is Cordoba.
I think it's Alfredo. I want to say it's Alfredo Cordoba. Yeah. She was a district judge. How difficult is it to be, and different is it to be a district clerk versus a 13th court, an appeals justice?
But it's interesting because when I interviewed for the spot at the 92nd District Court, I interviewed at the governor's appointments office, and there was a lawyer who was part of the interview process. He was the one who always interviewed judicial candidates. And one of the things he asked me, because when you work at the courthouse, it's a very vibrant scene in the courtroom, right? In the hallways, you're running into your friends, everyone's talking, everyone's trying to settle things. You're running into a bunch of people every day. And he asked me, do you think you can deal with the loneliness of being a district judge? And I didn't know what he meant until I became a district judge. You show up, you go into your office, you wait for your coordinator to tell you it's time to come out, and you go out there, you have the interaction for about an hour with people as you're trying to settle cases, and then everyone needs a little bit of time, and then they tell you to go back in your office for an hour and wait for everyone to resolve their cases, and you're the only one back there. And that happens day in, day out. So there's all that interaction that you were having as a lawyer out in the hallways and talking and trying to settle and do those things, it's all gone. And when you go from a district court now to the appellate court, now you're not seeing anybody all day long. It's even when we were at the office, I'd see people come in the office when they were coming back from lunch because my door was right by the entrance to the back entrance to the offices. And then when I had a staff meeting, if I didn't have a staff meeting, I was there just all by myself. So it's different than practicing law, and it requires a lot of patience to be able to sit at the desk. I got a standing desk now, so sit or stand and read all day. You got to have a real routine to get you through the day, which includes getting up and walking around to make sure you get your legs moving, or doing something else other than reading to kind of clear your mind, kind of like clearing your palate. Sometimes you got to clear your mind a little bit. So developing a routine and doing that as an appellate judge is important because you're all alone, and it's different than being a district court judge, and it's different than practicing law.
Why would any lawyer or judge want to be an appeals court justice? It's an odd position to be. Why did you do it?
Well, I do it for a number of reasons, and one, I saw the issues and problems that we have at the district court level, and the appellate courts really need to be a check on the district and county courts. And what we were seeing in the past was that the appellate courts, or our appellate court, was nothing more than an extension of the district courts. And whatever was going on at the district courts seemed to creep up into the appellate court as well. I'll tell you, at this moment in time, we have a better court today than we did in the past. And so I think that some of those influences are gone, but we got to keep working. I like to be an appellate judge because I think that we need a diversity of opinion so that we get it right, so that we have discussions. You know, I think we might be in trouble too if we had everyone thinking alike on the appellate court. So it really kind of works right now where we share thoughts, we influence one another, and I think it's important to have a completely disinterested, unbiased appellate court reviewing the cases that come out of the district and county courts.
So
it makes for a better judicial system overall.
Brandon,
have you ever had any cases, I guess opinions overturned of your own, or and then what is the average for the court?
Okay, so as a district judge, I was appealed, and I can't remember the number of times that I counted when I was at the 92nd, and then I went to the 93rd. I know I was appealed there, and from the 464th, I'm not sure whether I was appealed. I'm sure I was, but I remember I was only overturned one time, and that was on a default judgment. And default judgments are the types of cases that has the highest number of being reversed because the standard is so low. You just got to come and say, "Hey, I didn't get service," sign an affidavit, and they'll give you a new trial, and then you start from scratch. So I was overturned on a default judgment. Now, of these opinions that I've written as an appellate justice, haven't had any overturned by the Supreme Court or the Court of Criminal Appeals, but I think we're still kind of young, having only been on the court for a year. I don't think that from the time that they would have appealed from us, the opinions would have been written from the Court of Criminal Appeals or from the Supreme Court.
The 13th Court of Appeals is notorious for being overturned either at the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals or at the Texas Supreme Court. Is that still the going rate for the 13th Court of Appeals or opinion?
Yeah. So when we were running in 2018, that was one of our talking points. It was the most reversed court in of the 14 courts of appeals. They were the people, our opponents were quick to say that those numbers were changing, and I do believe they were changing, but they still were at the bottom half being reversed. And I think we've had a few cases that have come out recently where the 13th have been reversed by the Supreme Court as well.
And like I know it's been early on, but have you given any minority opinions where your minority opinion was like the Supreme Court or the Court of Appeals said you were right?
Well, see, we don't have any precedent yet from the Supreme Court on any of the ones we've written since I've been there. But I have dissented on a couple of cases that have been not published, but memo opinions where I dissented, and apparently the year that I've been there, I've dissented more than some of the other judges that have been there for a very long time.
Okay. Myra had a really good question, I think. Myra?
I wanted to ask you in your expertise, with law, everything that's happening right now in this country with like Portland, Seattle, DC, all the chaos, all the rioters, what will be the proper way to deal with the rioters? What would you say has to be done or could be done? Because I see Texas, right now we're okay, but we see places like Austin, San Antonio, and I've seen it, where they're trying to turn it into what's happening in Portland. A lot of these groups like BLM or Antifa coming into to Austin and San Antonio, trying to change, assimilate what they're doing in Portland. So, with your expertise in law, what is it that we need to do, or how should it be handled?
Well, I'm gonna walk a tightrope on this one, on that question, because I don't really want to comment on what their motives are. Okay, because rioters and protesters, or whatever you want to call them, can have many motives, and we don't want to stifle a person's First Amendment right. But this is what I'll tell you. I'm a judge, and I also have opinions. But as a judge, I see no other way to do this than following the law. I mean, that's all I can do. If there's a statute or ordinance or anything that's being violated, whatever the standard is by the local law enforcement, whether citation, show up later, arrest, arraignment, trial, whatever it is, whatever the rules are, is how we ought to do it. I don't know how we change the game on the fly and change the rules without the legislature or city councils making those changes. Whatever the rule is, whatever the law is, that's what our local officials, our state officials ought to be doing, what our law enforcement ought to be doing, and what our citizens ought to be doing is following the law. That's all I can say about that.
That's one of the things I do agree with you, and we don't want to silence people because everybody has a First Amendment right, whether we agree with them or not. When I'm out there at a rally or anywhere, I protect my First Amendment right just as I do with somebody that doesn't agree with me. Just because they don't agree with me, I don't want to silence them. It's a matter of a difference of opinion. But we have places also like Austin that they're defunding the police. And I think the last thing I heard was that Governor Abbott was trying to make them state police in order so they can come back in and try to take a hold of the law and try to enforce the law, because it's kind of hard when you don't have any police.
Yeah, I mean, I think I think they're going to cut their nose to spite their face is what they're going to do. And what you might see happen is these cities that are run by people who are allowing this might find that the business owners, citizens, are kind of sick and tired of it. And you might start seeing a change in some of those cities. I mean, I'll let you answer the question, Myra. If you walked downtown McAllen, or let's say you walked straight up to La Plaza Mall, grabbed a brick and threw it through the front door of the mall, what do you think would happen to you?
I will get arrested.
Because that's what the law is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm not making a comment as to anyone's motives or
No,
anyone's.
I appreciate.
You know what I'm saying? That's what needs to happen, and that's the way I look at it.
Do you feel we've had we live along the border justice, but we've had issues with across the border in Mexico where officials get not arrested, kidnapped or murdered or whatever. And judges seem to be, do you feel safe as a judge? And what other protections can we do for judges and justices to make them safer so that their opinions won't be influenced by outside people, whether it be the cartel or maybe rioters or whatnot?
Yeah, so I don't go to Mexico. I wish I could. It used to be one of the things we enjoyed about living on the border, and I wish that we had that same type of relationship with our neighbors to the south, where people could move freely back and forth, because at the end of the day, everyone went back home. That's the way we did it, and the people here love to go to Mexico to do a lot of things, including shopping and eating, and the people from Mexico like to come here to do the same. And we had a really great relationship, and then the violence started. And I think the violence is probably the most critical thing that prevents us from having that same kind of relationship we had in the past. I know this isn't the question, but you talk about the border wall. The border wall will have that effect, right? I mean, it will keep people from coming over. But in the end, in the long run, we really need is policies in place that we don't need a wall, because people stay where they're supposed to, because they're prosperous in the south, they're prosperous in the north, and we cross over, and then people know that it's against the law. You can't do it. I mean, you can't just go into Mexico. My wife and I talk about it all the time. You know how difficult it is to go to Canada? You can't go to Canada unless you prove you got some money and you have a place to stay. It's just one of those things. I think we need to work on the real root of the problem, and violence and corruption in Mexico is a big part of it.
Yeah,
I won't go because, I mean, it's specifically as a district judge, you're seeing clients or defendants every day that may or may not have come from cartels in Mexico, which would make it very dangerous for a judge to go into Mexico.
I remember there was a time when I was in high school, kids would go fishing during the day, during the school day, and they would come back. I mean, that's how safe it was in Mexico before.
Yeah.
The dogs, we can't even go.
The running as a Republican is very difficult, especially because, again, the route, not the route, but the base of the district is here in the Valley. Why did you choose to run as a Republican? Wouldn't it have been easier just to run as a Democrat and potentially even on that side of the aisle?
Well, they're exploring judicial selection in Texas, and there's a committee now that's been formed, and there's probably 100 different ways you can do it. A bunch of hybrid ways you can select judges, and I don't know when we're ever going to get to selecting judges in nonpartisan elections. Now, I think, excuse me, I think that would work. That judges were on the ballot just like everyone else, but they're nonpartisan. That would probably work better, because we're not supposed to talk about our politics anyway, right? But we're forced to. Our system in Texas says you got to pick a side, and that's the side I picked when I voted in my first election. I remember driving on election day from San Antonio to McAllen so that I could vote for Ronald Reagan. And then I got in the car and I went all the way back to San Antonio because school was in session and I was at St. Mary's at that time. And I always identified as a Republican since then. And Brandon would tell you that the little county that I ran as for county attorney, I don't think had ever elected a countywide Republican. We did have two of the strongest Republicans in all of the country living in our county,
Yes.
that they controlled their precinct in the Armstrong Ranch, and Ann and Tobin were county commissioners from their precinct for many, many, many years, and Sarita continues to be that commissioner.
Great.
But countywide, there may have been, way back, but we only had 400 voters, and that's amazing in itself, because we only had 400 people, including babies and people under 18 and people ineligible to vote. And so, but on election day, the number of voters seemed to just boom.
And now the mail-in ballot.
But I ran then, and they told me, just run as a Democrat. And I said, no, I just don't want to. And I ended up winning that election 2-1, and I stayed there for 12 years. And I'm gonna keep hammering away at it, because I don't agree with that, especially the way it's going now. I mean, I identify as a Republican, and I just can't imagine living in the world.
Yeah. One of the things that I like to ask at the end, because we don't want to keep you longer than an hour. We're already just a little bit over past the hour, is the Kim Wyatt question. I don't know if you knew who Kim Wyatt was. She was the executive producer at, I always say executive producer, but she's the news director at Channel 4. And her question would always be, is there something that I or Myra or Brandon, Manny didn't say much today, didn't ask you that you feel that you want to answer?
Well, yeah, I think the final question is, all these people that are watching that don't know who they're going to vote for, why should I vote for you? I think that, someone once told me, you had a long conversation with me, but you didn't ask for my vote. And so I've always remembered that. And so for all those people watching, look me up. Read more about me. See if I put my money where my mouth is, right? I mean, I have lived a life committed to service to our country, service to our community, and I don't think that anyone can find anything where they can say I ever compromised my integrity in the execution of my public office, whether it be in the military, or in a county or statewide office. So I think that's important, and I always tell people too that we can't be complacent. We can't. One of the things we studied recently was to reject passivity. We got to be forward thinking and push our message of integrity and honor in the court system, where people can feel like, you know what, those guys working at the courthouse, I have complete faith in them, because they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, and that is enforcing the law, the rule of law, and especially at the appellate level, interpreting as they are written and not legislating from the bench. And we have to be proactive with that. We have to tell people. We have to go to the community. We have to speak to civic groups to tell them all the good things that we're doing and how we are respecting the law, and we are not giving in to those temptations that those judges that you mentioned before. And we are calling out those bad apples so that we won't have any part of that at all, ever, so that people can have faith in our system again. And that's what I'm doing. And I want to continue to do it. So I want to ask all those people out there to vote for me and see how we can change our judicial system and the way the people who own those offices and how they can have faith in our system again.
I wanted to share a small story. I'm new into politics. I don't know if you guys know that. I just started, I think, maybe last year or the year before last. And Justice Tijerina was one of the first persons I ever met. Him and Ernie Elizalde. and they are the most approachable people you can talk to. So if he's out there campaigning and you have a question for him, he makes it so easy for you to go up to him and ask him. So he is a good person. He is a good justice, a good judge. So I just wanted to share that story, and thank you for always making me feel welcome to ask you and say hi to you. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
We're going to do a quick little ad. They have not paid for this, Justice, so you don't have to promote them or anything. But we would like to ask all of you all here that are watching our show, either live or on replay, because for whatever reason, we get a lot of people watching our show after we're done. Brandon thinks it's because it's at 7:30. He wants to move the show to 8 and make it easier. But we haven't decided that. The thing is that we're asking our friends that follow us at RioPolitics to support our family at New York Deli at all locations here in the Rio Grande Valley, whether it's in McAllen, whether it's in Westlaco, whether it's in Harlingen, or my favorite, the one in Brownsville. All week, they were vandalized on Sunday night at about 1:30 in the morning. A brick was thrown at their in their window in Harlingen, and we believe, I believe that it's probably politically motivated. And so they have been very big supporters of the two officers that were murdered at the hands of some crazed person in McAllen a few months ago. And so we want to support them. So please support New York Deli this week. Go have lunch, go have dinner, go as many times as you possibly can. Thank you so much for that. We'd also like to promote our show for tomorrow. Manny, our show for tomorrow is going to be someone awesome and special. It is a lady by the name of Debbie D'Souza, and she is from Harlingen originally. She is married to Dinesh D'Souza. She has a new movie coming out. It's called Infidel. It comes out on Friday, the 18th. It's called Infidel with Jim Caviezel. He's known to many of us as Jesus because he played Jesus a few years back in a Mel Gibson movie. She's also the executive producer for Trump Card, which will be available on demand on October 9th. And she will be with us live at 7:30 to answer your questions. We'll be discussing both of her movies. We'll be discussing national politics. I know Brandon's supposed to be with us. I believe Myra's going to be with us tomorrow. And it's going to be an enjoyable conversation with a lady who I admire. Again, she's originally from Harlingen and is now making waves nationally, her and her conservative husband. So thank you so much, Justice Jaime Tijerina. Thanks. So we look forward to seeing you all tomorrow at 7:30 and be with us hopefully an hour. I don't know. I think Debbie can only be with us for an hour. So get here early, ask your questions, be ready to go for us to discuss Infidel and Trump Card. Again, Justice Jaime Tijerina, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Ron. I appreciate it.
Hopefully you can come back again, maybe during early voting or something to promote your candidacy again, and we'll talk about different issues because your race is highly important. I firmly believe that the 13th Court of Appeals needs to be a conservative court and not legislate from the bench. And you all, I know you do a good job. Manny, Myra, Brandon, thanks for coming with us. We'll look forward to seeing you all again. Again, this is RioPolitics Live. We don't do the news. We just help you see it. God bless.